Hey guys, this is Charles Yeager with PremiumBeat.com. In this tutorial, we're going to learn the basics of the VR comp editor that's included in After Effects CC 2018. And this allows us to easily stabilize and track 360 footage, as well as make first-person POV edits, such as quickly painting out objects with the clone stamp. As you may know, Adobe recently acquired the Skybox 360 plugins from Metal, and they've been integrated into the latest Adobe CC 2018 release. The VR comp editor we're looking at today was previously known as Skybox Composer, so if you are familiar with that 360 plugin, it works in a similar manner. I do want to mention that you can download the 360 clips I'm using today from the blog post for this tutorial on PremiumBeat.com if you want to follow along. Alright, let's jump into After Effects. Alright guys, now that we're inside of After Effects, we need to do a few quick things in order to ensure that all the 360 plugins are going to work properly. First thing you need to do is come over to File, and then come down to Project Settings. And then where it says Video Rendering and Effects, make sure you're using the GPU acceleration. By default, it may be set on Mercury software only, but it will need to be set on Mercury GPU in order to work correctly with these plugins. Once you've selected that, just click OK. Now we need to open up the VR Comp Editor, and that's located here in the Window tab. And just come down here and you're going to see VR Comp Editor. Select that, and it's going to open up this dockable panel. You can just select it and then move it. I'm going to dock it over here. And then you should see it has the option to add a 2D or a 3D edit. And we're going to start off by stabilizing some 360 footage. So I've got my footage over here. It's the walking 360 footage clip. I'm just going to add that to a new composition, and we can take a look at this footage. So this is just me holding a monopod with a Gear 360 camera mounted on top of it. And I'm just walking, and you're going to see this kind of handheld 360 footage. You'll see it's got some movement to it. So our goal is to really stabilize this so that it kind of looks like it's just moving on a track. And it should be able to do a pretty good job with this particular shot. One thing that's important to note is when you're tracking and stabilizing 360 footage in After Effects, it works in the exact same way as the native After Effects camera tracker. It's actually the same tracker. What it does is it just isolates an area of your 360 video, tracks that, and then stabilizes the entire 360 footage from that data. So the area your footage was filmed in is going to play a big part. You can see this is a pretty open area with lots of trackable points. So just keep that in mind whenever you're tracking any 360 footage. Some areas may work better than others. And obviously the higher resolution your camera is and the more stable the footage is originally, better likelihood you're going to get a better track. Alright, so let's start off by stabilizing this footage. And what we're going to need to do whenever we're tracking or stabilizing 360 footage is we need to add a 3D edit. So I'm just going to select that button. And that's going to pop up the 3D edit options. First thing we're going to see is we need to select the composition we're working with, and I only have one open right now. So that's the one it defaults to, which is the walking 360 footage. If you had multiple ones, you could click this and you could go down and select whichever composition you're working with. Now for the composition settings, what this pertains to is really just the POV composition size. And by default, with it being 1920 and 16:9, that should work for most footage. I'm working with 4K footage here. I think it's 3840 by 1920. So this 1920 comp width by default will be fine. However, if you do feel like you need more resolution, you could always increase the comp width here to be the exact width of your footage. Again, mine's 3840 if you wanted to increase that. But again, I think it's going to be fine just as is. Now for just stabilizing our footage, we can pretty much ignore the rest of these settings because they don't really pertain to that because we're just trying to stabilize it right now. So I'm going to leave all of these unchecked, and I'm going to go ahead and click Add 3D Edit. When we do that, you're going to see it's going to run through a quick process, and it's going to open up a new composition. And what it actually did was create two new compositions. So you're going to see over here we have our walking 360 footage, and we have edit 1, and we also have an output render. And if we go over here to our project panel, you're going to see it actually created a brand new folder. So there's our original composition right here. And we have this brand new folder that was created. I can toggle it open, and inside of this we have our output, and we have an edit comp. And I'll just kind of show you navigating those what this is. So right now, from this perspective, I can hit the C key, and I can actually look around this video like a normal 360 video when I'm in the Edit 1 view. So I can make edits and changes from this perspective, so it makes it a lot easier like it's normal flat video. So that's pretty cool. And then we can come over here and we can select Open Output Render. And this is going to open up the new output, which is an equirectangular output of our 360 footage. And this would be what we render from. We're going to see all of our updates reflected in this comp. Now it's important when you're jumping back and forth between each of these compositions not to come down here and select, because sometimes things can get a little off kilt. So it's definitely better to come over here to the panel and just select Edit 1 or select the output directly from these two. Now I'm going to go ahead and move down the timeline here. We're going to see on this footage it's definitely not stabilized. You can see there's lots of movement going on. So let's go ahead and start stabilizing this footage. And what we need to do when you're in the Edit 1 view, you're going to see a Properties option. I'm going to select that. That's going to open up these property options. If we go down here, you're going to see apply AE 3D camera tracker, and that's what we need to run first. And you'll notice right below that we have track scene and we have stabilized footage. Now both of these are a little bit smaller and they're both located under this apply 3D camera tracker. That's because you need to run this prior to doing either one of those. So I'm just going to go ahead and select apply AE 3D camera tracker. And when I do that, you're going to see a banner appear on the footage, and what it's doing is just running the native After Effects camera tracker just from this POV view on our footage. And I can actually come down here, select my footage, and select the effects controls, and you're going to see that it's actually tracking. We can see the framing and everything updating there. So this is a very quick clip. It's going to take about 30 seconds or so. So I'm just going to skip ahead when this track finishes. All right, now that the track has solved, we can see that banner on the footage has disappeared. It's very important right now to not rotate the 360 camera because that can actually throw off the tracking data. And what we need to do first is over here with the footage selected, you're going to see in the effects panel, we need to select Create Camera. So I'm going to select that and we'll see all the tracking points on our footage. And down here in our composition, we're going to see a 3D camera tracker camera and a VR master camera. So in these properties now, what we need to select is stabilize footage. So when I select that, you're going to see it's going to link up that VR camera with that 3D camera tracker camera. And it's just going to link all that data together. And so now if we go through on our footage, you can now see our 360 footage has been stabilized. So it's looking really smooth. It almost looks like it's on rails. So it's really cool. And if we want to go ahead and see what this looks like on our 360 output, we just come over here and open the output render. And now we have a full view of our 360 footage. And we would render out from this composition. And you can see as I scroll through here, we're going to see it has been stabilized. So depending on the length of your shot and the resolution will depend on how long that track takes. But this was a fairly quick track, just like normal footage in After Effects. So again, let's say I was done right now with this process and I wanted to go ahead and render this out. What I would do is I would come back over here to the project panel, and you're going to see I've got my walking footage composition right here, and it says VR2 output. That would be what I'd render out. So I'd open up the render queue. I would just drag this down here, set my settings, and I would go ahead and render that out if you wanted to render out that stabilized version. So let's say now after we've stabilized our footage, I'm going to go ahead and open back up that output so we can see our stabilized footage. Let's say we wanted to track this now so we could add in some text. Now we can't use the same tracking data we did from our original track when we stabilized it because that footage was wobbly, so that tracking data is not going to match up with our new stabilized footage. So essentially we need to retrack this footage. Now the two ways we could do that is we could render this 360 clip out and import it back in. We have a whole new stabilized clip. Or what a lot of people want to do is just retrack this stabilized composition. That's what we're going to do here. We have to do a few little steps here just to make sure we don't break any of the linking, because all these names that are on these compositions, they can't be changed. Otherwise, it'll break the link to the VR comp editor. But it's a very easy fix. What we're going to do is we're going to locate our output composition right here, our walking 360 output that was created in that folder for this initial edit. I'm going to select that output. It's the stabilized composition. I'm going to add it to a new composition. So you're going to see it's going to create a new comp. I'm just going to move this outside here so we can just know where that is. And I'm going to actually rename this stable footage. So I'll hit enter. And the reason we add that to a new composition is just so, it doesn't break the linking with this previous edit. So I'm going to select my stable footage comp, and you can see that down here. I'm going to come up here to add another 3D edit. And now what we're going to do is we're going to select our composition. You're going to see stable footage here. If you don't see it, just click this and then select stable footage. We can leave all this on the defaults. One thing I am going to turn on this time when I'm actually going to be tracking something is I am going to turn on that I am going to be using 3D plugins just in case you decide to use some later. We're not actually going to do that for this tutorial, but it's usually a good idea to turn that on. So now I'm going to go ahead and select Add 3D Edit. And so now if we come over here, it's going to open up our new edit perspective for our stable footage, and we can go ahead and move through this. You'll see it's already stabilized. And if we come over here to the VR comp editor, you see we have two different edits going on. We have our original walking 360 footage. We can leave all this alone. We have our new stable footage, we have the edit view and the new output view. So again, we need to track this footage. So all we need to do is in the edit view, just come over here to properties. I'm going to select that. And we're going to come down here and we need to apply the AE 3D camera tracker again, because again, it needs to track this new stabilized version of our 360 footage. So I'm going to select that. We're going to see that banner appear on the back of our footage so we know it's tracking. If I select my footage down here and I come up here to the effects controls, we can see the 3D camera tracker has been applied, and it's going to go ahead and run through and track all these frames. I'm going to speed this up to when this finishes. Alright, so now that track has been completed, and now we need to go ahead and click Create Camera. And now we can see those track points all over our footage. Now it's important not to rotate the camera right now, because what we need to do is we need to come back over here to the properties, and now we need to select Track Scene. So now I've selected that, and what it's done is it's linked the VR master camera to that 3D tracker camera. If I go ahead and move through the footage now, you're going to see those points are now tracking everything in our shot. So we've successfully tracked our 360 footage. And if we want to add in any 3D plugins or anything to this scene right now, we can do that from this perspective. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and with the 3D tracker camera effect selected, I'm going to right click here between these points and I'm going to select create solid. So we can just see a solid in our scene. And now if I go ahead and move through here, you're going to see that it looks like that solid is matched into our 360 footage. And what's cool is we can actually hit C on the keyboard for the camera tool, and I can actually rotate that around. I can see that solid still in the footage, and I can go ahead and move through here, and you're going to see it's still tracking correctly for the shot. So again, you can rotate the camera around anywhere you want to. But now we can actually add in some 3D text or something like that if we wanted to as well. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to select the text tool. I'm just going to come in here and click in the shot, and I'll just type in 3D text. And with that text selected, I'm going to turn off the italicize there. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this 3D. When I do that, you're going to see the text actually going to move a little bit in our shot, and I can actually move it around now in 3D space. If I go ahead and scroll through the timeline here, we're going to see that text is floating actually in the scene. You'll need to be careful that the camera doesn't go right through the actual solid parts of the text, because that could look a little bit off on the output. But I'll go ahead and just move this kind of up and over. But you can see this is how you would add 3D elements to a track scene like this. And now if we want to actually see that in the output, we would just come over here and open up the output render. So I'm going to click that, and that's going to update and open up that new output. And now if we go ahead and move through this, we're going to see it's actually tracked in the 360 shot. You can see how the text went past the camera and this flat solid's coming toward the camera. So that's the basics of how you stabilize and track 360 footage using the VR Comp editor. Obviously you can get a lot more in-depth than we did here. This is just trying to get you started. But you can use a variety of 3D plugins along with this 3D tracked footage and add those to your scene and do various other changes like that. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another use case for the VR Comp editor, and that is to quickly paint out things or objects that are in your 360 shot. So I've got some other footage here, some drive up 360 footage. I'm going to add that to a new composition. So now we can see this 360 footage. You're going to see I've got a tripod down here at the bottom. There's a shadow of it over here in the bottom corner. And when we look at this from the 360 POV, you'll be able to see it a lot clearer. But I actually want to get rid of that tripod, and this is a really quick and easy way you can do that with footage. And what it's going to do, it's going to resample footage using the clone stamp tool. We can just sample it from other areas of the video. And so it's going to quickly paint that out, and it's going to match our shot. And it's going to look a lot better than actually like placing an image down there, because an image won't have natural things like grain or lighting changes, and this actually will reflect that. So what we need to do when we're doing this though, when we're doing any painting stuff, we actually need to use a 2D edit. So I'm going to come up here and select add 2D edit. And we'll have these add 2D edit options pop up. We need to select our composition, which is already selected for me here. And I'm just going to come down here and select add 2D edit. And again, we get an edit 1 view here, and we get our new output, so we can see the footage over here with edit 1 and the output. So I'm going to hit C on the keyboard. It's going to allow me to navigate around the shot. So if I look directly down here, we can see that tripod in the shadow area we want to get rid of. So in order for us to paint this out, what we need to do is we need to come up here and select the clone stamp tool. So I'm going to select that, and then we just need to double click on our footage. That's going to open up this new view. This is going to allow us to actually paint this out on our footage. Now it's very important to have your current time indicator located at the very beginning of your clip, because if you have it somewhere in the middle, it actually won't paint it out over the entire span of your shot. So that's definitely something important. Now I've got my paint and brush settings down here. I'm going to move this over just so we can see this a little bit easier. But for my brush, I'm going to be using a fairly large brush. I'm going to have the hardness set all the way down to 0%. And so what I want to do is I'm going to hold Alt on the keyboard and just click over here somewhere where it's not on the tripod or the shadow. And I'm just going to do multiple clicks. You can see just kind of quickly and gradually painting out that tripod. And I like to do a lot of quick kind of short stroke clicks there. I think it kind of paints it out more naturally, but you can see how quick and easy that was now that we've painted that out completely from our 360 footage. And now if we want to see that reflected on the actual 360 video, we just come over here and select Open Output Render. When I click that, you're going to see it's already removed that from our footage. And if we scroll through time here, you're going to see it's out throughout the entire duration of the video. So using the VR Comp editor, you can paint out things or any other objects that you have in your shot that maybe you don't want in your 360 footage. But it's nice and convenient because if we come back here to the edit view, we can do all this from a POV view, and it just looks like normal footage, so we're not actually dealing with the complications of something like an equirectangular shot like this one. But again, if we wanted to go ahead and render this out now, I would come over here and I would select that output right there for the open output render. You're going to see we have the drive up footage output, and that would be the one I would want to render out that has the tripod and everything painted out. So I would just come down here to the render queue, add that down there, dial in whatever settings I want, and go ahead and click render. Alright guys, hopefully you picked up some tips for using the VR comp editor in After Effects CC 2018. It's definitely just a quick introduction to all the powerful features that are included with the VR comp editor. Make sure you guys also check out the royalty-free music tracks available on PremiumBeat.com, where you can search by genre, mood, and many other criteria. This has been Charles Yeager for PremiumBeat. Thanks for watching.